Greetings, everyone. So good that we can be together again, even though we are doing it virtually. Actually, that's how we've always done it. But it seems that's what everybody is doing these days, is meeting virtually through the studios of Zoom. And the last time I recorded a video was about a month ago. I believe it was the 31st, maybe the 30th of March. It is now April 30th. A month has gone by. I have, I hope, some additional perspective I could now share with you about COVID-19. When I recorded the first video last month about COVID-19, I had a feeling that I'd have a lot more to say a month later, and I think I do. So let's get started. Now, where we left off, we were talking about shortages of toilet paper and canned goods, and I think the toilet paper shortage rages on. I don't know why. I don't get that. Still hasn't affected me. There is a shortage of air sanitizer like Lysol. We are expecting meat shortages, and that is because a lot of the workers that work in slaughterhouses are unwilling to go to work because there has been people at those work sites that have tested positive. And so there's no one to do the work. So there is, I have a different opinion about why this all happened. It was hard for me to reach this conclusion in the beginning, but I had a feeling something just didn't seem right. There seemed to be a great big overreaction to this, and I want to get into that. To begin with, I had said that this was spread from China as a result of the Chinese having eaten an infected bat. That, I think, has been debunked, although there's still people that are saying that's how it happened, that this bat was purchased at what they call the wet market, where the Chinese people go and buy live animals and fry them up and eat them. Now there seems to be evidence that it did in fact start in a lab, yet it's still undecided whether or not it was spread deliberately or not. I wouldn't put it past the Chinese government to do that deliberately, but I don't think that's what happened. I think it happened accidentally. I think the Chinese could have done something to stop it and chose not to. And I think it spread to Europe, came to New York, and spread throughout New York like wildfire through mass transport, because everybody there is riding the buses and trains. And so it spread that way. Now, a lot of the Chinese people probably came to California back in November, December, and even January, and it didn't seem to spread there. They don't have the number of cases. You would think that they would, but they don't. And it could be that because it started out there earlier than in the rest of the country, people didn't even know that coronavirus was a thing. I mean, they didn't even know what they had at the time. So a lot of people probably had what they thought was the flu, when in actuality they had COVID-19, and a lot of people recovered from it. So the mortality rate is low. A lot of people recover from it, but here we are 30 days later, and I'm thankful that it appears that the stay-at-home order is coming to an end here in Florida. And beginning on Monday, we're going to start opening up in phases, which is what the president had recommended. Restaurants, I believe, open on Monday, but they're going to be limited in the number of people that they could seat. So there'll probably be a table with like crime tape on it that says you can't sit here, or the host won't seat you there. They'll leave like tables open between each party, which means they're going to be able to seat a lot less people, which means your favorite restaurant, if it ever had waiting times, you're going to see a lot more of that. But it's just great to be able to get back out to the restaurants again. I'm looking forward to it. The barbers, the stylers, the masseuses and the tattoo artists and nail techs and all that stuff remains closed. Bars remain closed. I believe they'll reopen in phase 2. And I don't know how one phase ends and the next one begins. I think there has to be 14 days of a decreasing number of cases reported, new cases reported. So we're definitely not there yet, but there has been a decline. I think Florida peaked on April 7th. So things are looking good. Georgia has already opened. I think Tennessee might have. Georgia does have some restrictions. I'm not too familiar with them. I don't live in Georgia. It doesn't matter so much to me. But there's been a lot of pushback, and a lot of pushback towards reopening. You got to wonder why. One thing that I left out of my last video was that a lot of doctors had success using hydroxychloroquine, which is an anti-malaria drug that was developed in the 50s, and it treats people with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, which I believe my mother has, so she's actually taken it. A lot of people have taken it. It's been around for a long time, so it's a pretty safe drug. Like every drug, it has its side effects, and before you ask your doctor for it, when you complete those questionnaires, you got to be very clear on what your drug allergies might be, so that the doctor can make an informed decision on whether hydroxychloroquine is right for you, because it might not be. There's people saying that it causes heart palpitations. So there are side effects. Like all medications have side effects. But it's still something that you should consider if you, God forbid, come down with this. It's very contagious. It can still spread. But the fact that we've actually stayed home for a month now, the whole reason for that was to the mitigation was to what they call flatten the curve. It was to flatten the curve. It was so that the hospitals would not be overrun by a lot of coronavirus cases and people needing to end up in ICU hooked up to ventilators, because there was this fear that there wasn't going to be enough ventilators to go around based on what the models said. The models were anticipating this to be a lot worse than it has been. Now, there's no arguing it has been bad for the people who have died from it. They're no longer with us, and their families and loved ones, friends, they are all in mourning. So every death is a bad thing, but it's not as bad as, say, the flu. A lot of people die from flu every year, but it's just something we've come to accept. That's just the way it's always been, and it's always going to be, even though there is vaccines for the flu. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep us home longer because they want to come up with a vaccine. First of all, there is what's called herd immunity. And let me explain that, and look it up, because I don't know that I'm going to explain it to you correctly, but I believe my understanding of herd immunity, and this is what might have happened in California, is people get it. Let's say this is what happened in California, because I don't know for a fact. The people in California that came down with it kept going out. They didn't know to self-isolate. They kept going out and they kept giving it to other people. But the people that got it, they also developed an antibody to it. And I believe when they spread the virus, they also spread the antibody. So the people that contracted it had the antibody to fight it. And eventually the virus just died out there because it just ran out of people to spread it to. I don't know. It's plausible, but the fact that we've all stayed home is actually, some people say, has prolonged this, made it take longer than it otherwise would if we would just go out and infect each other, which sounds kind of scary. But again, this is not a very dangerous disease, virus, unless you have some significant underlying health condition, respiratory related, or unless you're like 60 and up. Those are people that should still continue isolating for a while longer. But you know, a lot of viruses do not have vaccines. I believe SARS was one that we were very close to developing a vaccine for, but never ultimately came up with, and it just kind of died out. And that can happen with the coronavirus, the COVID-19 coronavirus, although Dr. Anthony Fauci is threatening that it's going to come around again in the fall. So I don't know, what are we supposed to do? Stay at home until the fall and then wait for that to blow over? Are we going to be home for the rest of our lives? You know, the people that are urging us to stay home are politicians, people in the media, and all those people, they have jobs and they're going to continue making money. But a lot of the people that have been asked to stay home, they don't have jobs anymore. They've lost their jobs. And they may not have enough money accumulated to do this forever. And to finally make my point about why I think that's going on, I don't think it's to develop a vaccine, because, like I said, a vaccine may never happen. And I mean, the most optimistic people out of everyone that's saying we're going to come up with a vaccine for this are saying it's going to take 12 to 18 months. People can't wait 18 months. You know, a lot of these small businesses are the ones that create the most jobs. And if they can't stay in business, everyone they employ is going to go out of business. And we're headed for a deep depression like we have not seen in our lifetimes. It's going to be really bad. It hasn't happened yet, but it can happen. And I think a lot of people in politics recognize that and think it's a good time to maybe create a circumstance where we can have a change in the administration, right? Because the people that dislike the president were unsuccessful in having him removed from office through the Russia collusion investigation and the impeachment. That impeachment was as a result of a phone call to not Russia, but I don't even remember the country. But there was a conversation with a new leader, and the president was accused of threatening to withhold aid unless they investigated Joe Biden, which was at the time expected to be the president's opponent in the 2020 campaign. And he is now the what they call the presumptive nominee. No one else is running other than Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, bless his heart, is, I believe, like 78 years old. He has always had a reputation for blunders, sticking his foot in his mouth, but it's getting a lot worse. And I believe it has to do with his age, and he's really not up to the demands of a campaign. This circumstance that's going on right now, I think is helpful to him because he doesn't need to go out and do rallies. He can just talk on video like I'm doing. And, you know, he has to kind of hide out in his basement right now because the man is over 60. And, but he's not doing well. And I think it's probably better for him if he's not saying things that are going to embarrass himself, because it's going to make his chances of winning the election that much more difficult. But a lot of people believe that even if he were to be successful in getting elected, he would not have the ability to serve, and his vice president would be actually the one serving. So there are some details that I think I've left out, and that is, because a lot of people are out of work, they tend to blame the people who are in power, which is they're going to say this is the president's opponents are going to try to characterize the whole coronavirus debacle as being all President Trump's fault. They're going to do that, and that is how they're going to try to get him removed from office. One thing that I talked about in the last video was there are people that believe the globalists are trying to take over, and that this coronavirus was deliberately spread. I'm still not on board with that concept. I think that it happened by accident in China. I think China decided that they weren't going to suffer alone. Their own economy wasn't going to suffer alone. They were going to go ahead and let us be damaged by it, and we were. And then there are people here also that have probably seen it as an opportunity to allow it to go on, because it'll prolong the pain that's caused by staying home, the increase in alcoholism and drug use and domestic disputes and job loss and confusion and all this stuff. You know, people are going to want to change. I mean, that they want this to become the new normal, because it's going to make people very unhappy, and people are going to want to change. And, you know, the economy is going to be bad in November on election day if this keeps up. And so we really need to reopen the government, not really to help the president. It's to help ourselves, because we can't just stay at home. That $1,200 check, I haven't gotten it yet. I've now formally requested it. I know I'm going to end up having to pay taxes when I complete my 2019 tax return, because I've owed taxes for the last few years. So I want to use that money towards paying down my tax debt. But yeah, a lot of people are hurting right now, and it doesn't make sense that you would want to make people continue to hunker down at home. People need to go and return to work and get back to life as normally as possible, while also trying to be responsible and you know, keeping 6 feet apart from other people. You can do that in the workplace and keep business as usual going. We need that. Anyway, I'm running long. I have a feeling I've missed a whole bunch of things more that I would have liked to have touched on. Hopefully this will be the last time I speak on this subject. If I record another video next week, next month, whatever, hopefully we've moved on, and we're living happier times, and we'll have happier things to discuss. So I want to thank you for listening, and thank you for agreeing, and hope to do this again sometime in the near future. Thank you.
Due to Florida being in lockdown, I was unable to get a haircut. It became so uncomfortable I ordered a hair trimmer and picked it up from Walmart. Alone and in quarantine, I had no choice but to shave my head, as you can see here. I recorded this video 2 days later, so if I look bald, now you know why.